Hello everyone, welcome to this session on Kubectl Basic Commands. Kubectl is one of the commands utility for Kubernetes which can help you to interact with the Kubernetes interface. Today in this session, we will be going through some of the basic commands that you should know of Kubectl to basically interact with the Kubernetes cluster. Alright guys, so if you have liked the video so far, be sure to hit that like button and also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. So let's get started.
Kubernetes is one of the most sought after container orchestrating tool in the world right now. Almost all of the organizations who are using containers are using Kubernetes as the tool to orchestrate those containers, and hence kubectl is an integral part of it where you can use it as a command line interface to interact with your Kubernetes cluster. In the past, we have posted a few Kubernetes videos and tutorials and installation, and people were like, we need some more commands and we want to see how the basic commands work. That's why we have decided to come up with this session on Kubectl Basic Commands to address some of the basic commands and how you can get started with Kubernetes. But before we get into all of that, please subscribe to our channel to never miss an update from Intellipaat. Also guys, if you do like this video, give it a thumbs up. Now, before we begin, I want to touch upon a few things. So this session is like of an introductory session as to how to get started with kubectl and different commands that are in there. You can find many more commands. So this is not the entire list of commands. There's a lot of different commands, and the commands in here also have a lot of different variations as well. So you can find more of these commands available on their official website as well. Kubernetes official website also has it. Intellipaat has also posted a cheat sheet where you can find many of these commands. So I would recommend going through this, and to get a better zest of these commands, I would recommend you to practice everything, and you can practice along with us also while playing this video in the background to get better zest of things. So that's that. And other than that guys, this is a stepping stone. So this is the first you install, then you get this, and then you have to get through some concepts which are important. So I would recommend going through some of our tutorials and something like that, right? So that is what that will be like. So in this particular session, we'll be going through some of the commands. We have like 10-11 different kinds of commands in here, where we'll be discussing what are these, and different combinations of this are also available. So let's begin without wasting any further time. So the first command is create. So what do I mean by create? So basically what I mean by first command is the simple fact that if you see on your screen right now, the kubectl will be the starting of all of these commands. So the first word that you write will be kubectl. So it basically tells you that this is being interacted with the help of kubectl. So kubectl will be there, and the first thing that you write after that is create. Now, create is a command which is used to create resources from a file. It could be of the file .json, or it could be of the type .yaml. Either way is accepted. Other use for create is also there. So you can use create to use a lot of different things. So in this, when you are using with a file, the syntax is kubectl create -f and then the file name, and it creates those resources inside of those files. But create can be used to do a lot of different things. You can create service loads balancers, service node port, service account, cluster role binding, config map, cron jobs, deployment, namespace. All of these things can be created using this command. There's another thing that you can use to create files configuration as well. So you use kubectl apply, and using that apply, you can apply some configurations to your cluster as well. So that is something else that you can use. So you can use for creating resources from a file, you can use create or you can use apply. So let's quickly try creating a file using kubectl create. So I have my Kubernetes cluster here up and running. I only have one node right now. Let me show you that really quickly. Kubectl get nodes. So this shows you the number of nodes I have. Just wanted to show my cluster is up and running. Now let's create a file. So I have a file ready in here. So this is a YAML file for deployment. So a YAML file for deployment, basically this has the specifications of the deployment that I want to create. So it has the name of the the kind is deployment, and the name is nginx deployment. That is in the metadata, and it has 3 replicas. So basically it will spawn 3 pods, and you have another match labels, you have images, you have container specifications and things like that, right? So let's create this file. So in order to do that, I will switch to my terminal really quickly. I'll have copied this. I'll move to my terminal really quickly. Now in here, I will type the command nano t2.yaml. I'll just paste this particular YAML file which I have really quickly. And once I've done, I will just save it and I'll exit. So my file is ready. Now what does the command say? The command says kubectl create -f file name. You can see right here, right? Kubectl create -f the file name. So we'll do that. Let's quickly go to the file. Kubectl create -f and the file name, which is t2.yaml in our case. Once I do that, you can see the deployments has been created. Now, if I check for pods, so I have 3 replicas in my deployment, right? So I have 3 replicas in my deployment. You can see, so it has created the deployments and it has created everything. So you can check by kubectl get deployments. This is Nginx deployment which was created is up and running. Cool. Let's move on to the next command. So I was talking about this, right? So you can use create to do a lot of different things. Like you can create a cluster role, you can create role binding, secret, a lot of different things. All of these things which are mentioned here can be done with this. But the syntax will be a little bit different from what we did just now. So I have that syntax ready for you as well. So if you wanted to say, let's say, create a deployment with the name and you can give this image. So the syntax for it would be kubectl create, then whatever that you want to create. So if this was a deployment, it's a deployment here. If it was a cluster role, it will be cluster role. If it's a secret, it will be a secret. Then here the things will change accordingly according to whatever you are creating, right? So this will change. For deployment, it will remain deployment's name and hyphen image, and whatever the image that you are pulling, that image, and then the commands and arguments. So like for example, you can do kubectl create deployment and call it my deployment, and image of nginx and replicas equals to 3. So let's see what happens when we run this command. So let's bring up our cluster, kubectl create. Let's bring on top of it so that it's better for you to understand. So you can see kubectl create deployment and name it deployment. I will say name it my dep hyphen image equal to nginx hyphen replica equal to 3. Let's see what happens. As you can see, a new deployment is created with the name of my dep. So if I do kubectl get deployments, now I have another deployment coming up. As you can see, the nginx which was created when we did the before one, and my dep which we created just now has been. So you can use create commands in the way to create something from a file, or you can create some another resource with some arguments and some names and everything that you have to keep in mind about the syntax. Using these syntax, you can do this. So this is one of those commands. Let's move on to the next command, which is kubectl get. So we've been using get now exclusively. So we are doing kubectl get pods, kubectl get pods wide, and different things like that. So basically, get command, what it does, it prints a table of most of the information about the specified resource. For example, when I was doing kubectl get deployments, it was getting the information with respect to the deployments. You can filter the list using the label selectors, and you can use selector flags, and you can do a lot of different things. So let's say if I wanted to get deployments from a particular environment or namespace, we can do that as well. So that can be done. If the desired resource is in the namespace, then only you will see those results, otherwise you will not. And if you want to see all namespaces, then you have to pass the parameters, which is hyphen all hyphen namespaces. Let me show you how that works. So the basic syntax is kubectl get and the resource name. So let's start with the basic one. I'll show you all of these commands really quickly. So kubectl get pods. You can even type get po, and that will also work for pods. I'll show you. Get po. Oh, sorry. Kubectl get po. This will also work, and kubectl get pods will also work. Both are the same thing. You can see same results. So we are getting pods like this, right? And let's say if you wanted to get some particular pods and you wanted to pass some particular thing, then you can have that as well. But let's say if I wanted to, this is getting me all of the pods in the default namespace, because that is the namespace that I've designed. But let's say if I wanted to see pods of all namespaces, so what you can do is kubectl get pods hyphen all hyphen namespace and pass this parameter. You can see the S was missing, namespace says it's namespaces. So you can see all of the pods which are there in different namespaces. You can see which all namespaces it belongs to. So default ones were the one which were coming here, and there are cube system is another namespace which we have, and you can see all of the pods which are there in various different namespaces. I have started also spawning, right? So you can do that as well. Another thing that you can do is kubectl get pods hyphen o wide. Now what's that command? We've seen something here which is hyphen o wide. So this basically returns you all of the pods with more information, like all the pods which you have in with more information. So you can see before what we were getting is, let's say, the name, the status and restarts and the age. Now we are getting all of those plus the IP plus the node that it is on, plus the nominated node and readiness gates. So we have all of the information coming in, and that is with the hyphen o wide. So if you want to get more information with respect to any particular resource, then you use the flag hyphen o wide, right? So that's that. And you can get services, deployments, anything. So you can get kubectl get deployments. We saw that before. You can also get services, kubectl get services. You can get ingresses. You can get basically anything that you want, which you can if you want to print something. There's like a print statement for the resources that you have, and that is how it works, right? So that's that. Let's move on to the next command. So we got done with get, right? So next one is expose. Now what you can do with expose is like whenever you have a Kubernetes service running, right? So if by default it is on like the cluster IP interface, and your deployments and everything which are not on the exposed end, it is not reachable externally. So let's say if you wanted to expose a resource as a service to an external point, then you use the command expose. So basically it looks up a deployment, service, replica, set, replication control, or a pod by name, then uses the selector for that resource as a selector, and it sends it to a new specified service point. For example, let's say my deployment, I have created a deployment right now, right? But that deployment resides inside of my cluster. Nobody from the outside world can see what is going on in there. That's the problem. What if I wanted to, make it externally reachable, so that somebody who can type in the port numbers or the link or the address, whatever it is, they can reach the particular deployment. So what I'll do is I'll expose that deployment as a service at some given particular port, and using that I can reach it externally. So let's try to do that. So the basic syntax for that is kubectl expose, and then you can have the type or the file name. So for example, here the deployment is the type name of the resource that we are providing, deployment and the deployment's name then you have to give. So deployment and deployment's name is nginx and -- port 80, that is the port that it is currently serving on, and the target port is 8000. So you have to provide both in order to do that, right? So you can do that really quickly. So let's expose us deployment that we have right now. So I'll open. So let's run this command. So kubectl first let's get the deployment. Okay, we have the name of the expose deployment. Let's say my dep. We will expose my dep -- port equals to 80 -- target port equals 8080. You can see a new service is created. So if I do kubectl, now to get service, you can again type a get svc or get service, both will work. You can see a new service has been created with the name mydep, which was the name of my deployment, and it has been exposed to a port 80 which was there initially, right? So that is the idea behind it. So that is how it works. You can also expose it as a particular type of service which can be externally reachable IPs as well. That can also be done. So but that is not required for now at the moment, but just know that you can expose your deployments as a service. So my service deployment was exposed. So my deployment was exposed as a service on the port 80, right? So that is that. Let's move on to the next command, which is delete. Now what you can do is you can delete some resources as well. So a lot of times you will be requiring to delete resources, and it depends on what you're deleting, that will determine what all will be deleted. So let's say kubectl delete, and then you can have the file name -f file name, you can have -k directory, you can delete an entire directory, or you can have a type or label and you can delete particular things. For example, if you wanted to delete pod, so kubectl delete pod, and then the pod name will delete a specific pod. But let's say if I wanted to create everything created by my deployment, so that is my deployment should also be deleted. My number of pods created through that deployment should also be deleted. So I can delete a file. So kubectl delete -f t2.yaml will result in all of my deployments with respect to the nginx deployment being deleted, as well as all of the pods which were created will also be deleted. So and you can delete things with the help of label as well. So you can see this example in here, which is on the bottom left side of the screen. Kubectl delete pods, services -n. So you are deleting pods and services which have the label where name is equal to my label, or by the label name equals to my label. So wherever this exists, all of those pods and services will be deleted. So you are passing it as an argument. So these particular things I want to delete. Let me show you these really quickly so you get a better understanding of things. So first, let's try to delete the deployments that we have. So let's see what all do we have. So kubectl get deployments. So we have 2 deployments right now, and kubectl get pods. And you can see we have 3 pods coming from the Nginx deployment and 3 pods coming from the mydep deployment. This is according to replicas that we created initially. Now let's say that I wanted to delete the Nginx deployment and all of the pods associated with it, right? So all of the pods associated with it. So what do I do is kubectl delete -f t2.yaml, because these things I created through a YAML file, right? So I'm going to delete that particular file. So what happens? Let's see. So you can see it has deleted the deployment. So if I get kubectl get pods now, terminating, you can see. And if I do kubectl get deployments, only one of the deployments is remaining. If I do get pods now, you can see my Nginx 3 of them have terminated, only one is remaining. And in a second, I think the last one will also be gone. So that is basically how you can delete all of the everything which is created from that file will get deleted if I do that, right? Now, what if I wanted to delete a particular pod, right? So let's say kubectl get pods. So this is the mydep pod name. So this is the pod name. So if I do kubectl delete pod and then the pod name, so you just copy that. So the problem with this one will be that since it's a deployment that we created, that is the mydep is a deployment, so it will keep respawning the pods. But you can see, just notice the name 4DZZ4, it will not be spawning once we delete it. Let's see. So it has deleted a pod. It will take a couple of seconds. We'll just give it a couple of seconds. So it has deleted a pod. So if I do get pods now, I will still get 3 pods from the my deployment kind of thing, but none of them would be this particular pod that we deleted, like 4DZZ4. You can see that particular pod is deleted. Since that is the feature of deployments that we keep on it will, once we specify, let's say I want 3 replicas at all time, no matter if it gets deleted or it stops responding or whatever, Kubernetes has this capability where it respawns the pods constantly. So that is the advantage of using deployments. That is why people prefer using deployments. So if your pod fails for some reason, Kubernetes automatically restarts a new pod for you. So that is that. So this is the kubectl delete command. Let's move on to the next one. So the next one is autoscale. So you can give a command to autoscale. So you can autoscale your deployments, and basically it creates an autoscaler that automatically chooses and sets the number of pods that run in Kubernetes cluster and looks up deployment, replica sets, stateful sets, as well as replication controller. So all of these first you can autoscale, and it basically gets them by the name and creates an autoscaler that is given with for the resource as a reference. So let's say if I say I want to autoscale deployment and then deployment's name, and I will define how many minimum or maximum pods I need. So this is basically done because let's say if you are Grofers or if you are Flipkart or Amazon, you don't get the same number of people trying to access your website every single day, right? It will not happen that every day you will get the same amount of traffic, but sometimes, let's say during a sale period or during some festival season, you will get a lot of traffic coming to your particular website. So how do you know that when it's going to hit, and how do you autoscale? So you can basically tell Kubernetes that whenever, let's say, there is huge amount of traffic coming. So let's say if there is something you can define. So if let's say my pod can handle 3 requests at the moment, and for example during a sales season that 3 becomes 6, my Kubernetes autoscale command will basically enable my pods. So let's say I have only 3 replicas, it can automatically scale up to 5, 6, 7, 8 just to serve the requests. It can basically do that. So it has that capability as well of auto scaling. So you can do that with the help of Kubernetes as well. Let's move on to the next command, which is scale. So I'm moving on to the next command because I cannot show you auto scale right now. I can show you scale. I can show you how you can improve the replicas. And basically what you have to do is you can scale for a new size of a deployment, replica set, replication controller, or stateful set. Works for all of these 3, and basically allows you to specify 1 or more preconditions to scale also. So whatever you need, you can replicate that as well. And basically if you wanted to manually increase the number of replicas that you have, then you use the command scale. So very simple command. So the syntax for it is kubectl scale, and the resource resource version equals to version, and then current replicas count, and then the replicas count and file name and type. So let's try this out. Let's see how this works. So I'm going to be opening my terminal again. So I have a deployment which is running, which is mydep. So kubectl scale -- replicas equal to 4, and then it says to write the file name and or the type, right? File name or the type name. So replicas equals to 4, and then we are going for my deployment, which is of the name my dep. Let's see. As you can see, it says the deployments was scaled. So I had 3 pods running before. Let's see what happens now. Kubectl get pods. Sorry. As you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4. It has scaled my number of replicas just by a ping of a command. And you can do the same thing with the help of Autoscale, where you can define the number of replica sets that you want. You can, in here, you can define minimum 2, maximum 10. So at all times it will be minimum of 2, but based on the service request, it can be scaled up to the maximum of 10 to serve all the service requests. So that is the use of the scale command. Okay, let's move on to the next one, which is called describe. So as the name suggests, it's prints out a detailed description of the selected resources, including the related resources, events, controllers, and whatnot, right? So if you are going to get the detailed information for, let's say, one particular resource, then you use the command describe. The syntax is pretty simple and pretty straightforward. So you type kubectl describe, and then you write the type of the thing that you want to describe. So let's say if it's a pod, so kubectl describe pod, and then pod's name. So whatever pod you want to describe, you mention the name, right? And if it's a service, then you write kubectl describe service, and then the service name, kubectl describe deployment, and then the deployment's name. So whatever it is, then you go ahead with that, right? Let's quickly dive in and see how that works. So we have, I'll clear the screen so that, because the describe will give you a lot of information, that's why. So kubectl get pods, that is just to get the pod's name. So that's that. Kubectl describe pods, and then pod name, right? It returns the entire information with respect to the pod. So everything for this pod has been here: the name, the namespace that it is in, the priority it has, the node where it is residing, the start time, the labels it has, the annotations, the IP, the controllers, the ID, container ID, image ID, and what ports it is on, if it is being pulled, restart counts, when was it, type of the conditions like initialization is true, container is ready, true, pod schedules true, and normal everything, all of the events that has happened with respect to this pod, and everything, the volume mounts and everything about this pod you can find in here. So that is what describe is used for. So when you want detailed information of a particular resource, you go for describe. And that is the basic idea behind that. Let's hit clear and move on to the next command. So next command is logs. So basically logs, as you can suggest, it prints the log of a specific pod or a resource, and if the pod only has one container, then the container name is optional. So where you can have pods with multiple containers also. So if they are multiple containers, then you would have to specify the container name as well. But if you have only one container, then it's fine, right? It's optional then. If you wanted to get, so the syntax for it is kubectl logs, then -f, -p, depending on whatever that you are using, the pod and or the type name, and the container name that you want. So if you want to get all of the containers in a pod by the label app equals to nginx, then what you do is kubectl logs, then -l for the label, and then the app equals to nginx all control containers equals to true. So what we'll do is we'll try to get logs of one of our containers, and let's see how that looks like. So it's kubectl, let's get pods first, so that we can copy the pod name. Yeah. So kubectl logs -f pod, because I think we can give the type name. Yeah. So we can give a pod or type name pod, and then the pod name, which is, let's say, this one. And since I think it has only one container, so I don't think I need to give the container flag, so it should work. Maybe we don't need to specify pods in here. So you can see the logs with respect to this has been printed. So you don't need to give the name, you just need to give the name of the resource and it will work. So that was the logs for this particular thing, right? So don't need to give that, and you can directly go ahead with that. We could have given some label, but we just went with the resource name, right? So that is that. Let's move on to the next command, which is exec. Now exec is something which is used to execute a command. Even you can use exec to get inside of the containers as well. So you can get inside the containers, you can change different resources in there. So you can use exec command for that. So basically any commands that you want to address, you use the command exec. And the syntax is very simple: kubectl exec and then the pod or the type name. And then you have different flags which you can put in. For example, kubectl exec my pod and hyphen date, it will give you the running date of the pod. Let's quickly try that. Yes. Kubectl get pods, kubectl exec, then your pod's name, and then whatever the command that you want, right? It's not clear. I just wanted to move this here so that you can see the command, and the way I'm typing is the same. Exec and then any pod name. So go with this pod, hyphen. You can see Wednesday, deck 9, everything with respect to that has been delivered. So these were some of the commands, guys. So with that, I think we have covered some of the basic commands for this session. And let's move on to the next section and talk about how you can get started with Kubernetes and other things. So we at Intellipaat, we understand that an investment in knowledge always pays the best interest. That's why we provide a lot of free content in the form of blogs as well as the YouTube tutorials. So if you are an avid reader, I would request you to go out and check out our blogs on various different technologies. Or if you want to watch long tutorials and informative videos, then we have our YouTube channel as well. And in there you can find out a lot of free content for various different technologies. We post long tutorials up to 11 hours as well, and we post small informative videos like this one where we address one simple point of contact for one particular topic, right? So we do that as well. But if you are someone who is looking to learn more in depth and you want, I'm okay with Kubernetes. I understand. I've seen your 2-3 hour long tutorial, but I want to get trained by an industry expert. I want to get ahead of the curve. I want to have some assignments, some project works, and I want to be able to ask doubts one-on-one. Now, what I would recommend for you is to come join us at Intellipaat's website. So if you want, you can go and check out the details on our website. We do teach a lot of different kinds of courses, and Kubernetes and DevOps being one of them. So you can check them out on our website. For any other queries that you have with respect to this sessions or any other session that we have had, you can leave a comment down below, or you can contact us on the numbers mentioned on the screen, or you can write to us at sales@intellipaat.com. So with that, guys, I've come to the end of this session. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.